In my hunt for my latest creative and difficult MyGM challenge, I've been inspired by something that might sound a bit surprising. Don't worry, I'll explain. In RuneScape, you can create accounts known as Ultimate Ironman. On an Ultimate Ironman account, you only get one life. If you are defeated, you lose everything. Not just your items, but even your XP. I tried to think of a way to bring this Ultimate Ironman concept to MyGM, and today's challenge is extremely interesting as a result. Here's what I've got to do. I've got to beat 3 AI opponents on the hardest difficulty settings: Snake Draft, Default Draft Pool, Lowest Starting Budget, and no shakeups. All of that should be obvious, right? Here's where the interesting part of the challenge comes in. Every time a superstar loses their belt, they get fired. On top of this, I'm not allowed to hire anyone to replace them. All of my roster must be built in week 1, with one small exception, we'll get to that. And on top of this, I'm not allowed to use any power cards. The GM and brand power cards aren't included in this rule. I'm allowing myself to use those because I think they add interesting strategy elements and different ways to play this challenge, but every other type of power card is strictly off limits. If those rules weren't enough, I'd put myself against the 3 opponents and 3 brands that I'd least like to face, just to make sure I was making all of this as tough as possible. Welcome to the MyGM Ultimate Ironman. My strategy here is going to be broken down into 2 parts. I'll get to the second part in a little while. The first and potentially most important part of my strategy is to get my GM, brand, and draft decisions correct. I knew that one of the toughest aspects of this challenge would be that I'd need to operate with a pretty big roster. Because lots of superstars could end up getting fired and I'm not allowed to replace them, I'd need to make sure I had enough superstars to get through the season. But starting on the lowest budget makes this really tricky. Because I'd need to sign a big starting roster, I decided to represent NXT 2.0 because of their ability to sign 3 free agents at half price. Saving money on building my roster would be crucial. To double down on this plan to piece a big enough roster together with my small amount of starting cash, I chose Xavier Woods because of his ability to steal a superstar from an opposing brand. Remember a minute ago when I said I'd have to sign my entire roster in week 1 with just one small exception? That exception is with Xavier Woods' ability to steal a superstar, which I do in week 2. The only reason for this is because the game literally doesn't let me do it in week 1, and I think it's fair. I'm not signing them, I'm stealing them, and this would be the only time that anything like this would be permitted in the challenge. I ran some numbers and decided the ideal roster size that I would build. I'd draft 13 superstars, I'd sign 3 free agent superstars, I'd steal 1 superstar, and I'd sign 3 jobbers. In total, my starting roster would be 20 people strong, though obviously the season wouldn't finish that way, as multiple superstars would likely be fired, and I just had to hope that I had enough to get me through. If you're unfamiliar with how MyGM works, having a big roster like this might seem like a good idea, but it's extremely hard to balance. The reason for this is because every single week a superstar doesn't appear in a show, they lose popularity, and popularity is one of the most important things for a match to be rated highly. We need high-rated matches to earn fans and win the challenge. With just 4 matches and 3 promo slots available in regular weeks, 20 superstars is a lot of plates to spin, especially when you want the same stars to be appearing in lots of matches to build up rivalries. I'm having to bank a little bit on some superstars getting fired because money is so tight for me with such a big roster. Having a big roster isn't just an insurance policy against those getting fired though. It allows me to rest some superstars when needed because I can't use any power cards to help them recover stamina. I drafted John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Logan Paul, Bobby Lashley, Dexter Lumis, LA Knight, Commander Aziz and Angel on the men's side, and I picked up Bianca Belair, Dakota Kai, Raquel Rodriguez, Shotzi, Gigi Dolan and Indy Hartwell on the women's side. I then picked up Angelo Dawkins, Edge and Ludwig from the free agent pool and hired the local talent jobbers of Triton, Trent Shaw and of course Kyle Slickman. To jump quickly ahead to week 2, I stole Finn Balor to complete my 20-person roster, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, we've got a week 1 show to put together. This is where the second part of my master plan would be revealed, and it can be broken down into 2 parts, my massive roster and the titles that superstars hold. I selected Bobby Lashley to be the world champion and Bianca Belair to be the women's champion, so they'd be 2 superstars that are immediately at risk of being fired. I have 3 belts that are currently vacated. The men's US title, the men's tag team title, and the women's tag team title. Because no one holds those belts yet, no one could lose them if I put them up for grabs. Whoever loses the first match with these belts on the line would be safe from being fired. As for real title defences, with someone at risk of being dethroned and fired, I'd have to put them on as infrequently as possible. I can't risk people being fired all the time, so I'd have to save them for premium live events in every 5th week of the season when rivalries are at their peaks, wherever realistically possible. But if I don't put on enough title fights, then my rivals are going to absolutely smash me in the ratings, so I can't be too tight with them either. In week 1, we put both vacant tag team belts on the line, and it was a pretty good show. A 3-star opener, a 2-star, a 1.5-star mid-card, and a 3-star main event. You can't ask for much more than that in week 1, and we had 4 new title holders. Raquel Rodriguez and Indy Hartwell became our women's tag team champions, and John Cena and Angelo Dawkins became our male tag team champions. It wasn't all smooth sailing though. I used 2 of our 3 promo slots to do call-outs between Bianca Belair and Dakota Kai to try to get a level 2 rivalry right off the bat, but neither of them worked, so that was a total failure. We start the season in 2nd place, slightly behind Adam Pearce at SmackDown, but it's all so close at this stage that the placings really don't matter too much. At least we're not comfortably in last place like we were in the last challenge, but the difference here is that with this challenge, it actually gets harder as the season goes on, as my roster will get smaller and smaller. In week 2, we put our final vacant belt on the line, the men's US Championship belt, and it would be Brock Lesnar against Logan Paul in a tables match. Brock became the champion in a 3.5-star rated opener, a great result for us. In the main event, Bianca Belair and Dakota Kai managed to put on a 3.5-star rated TLC match, but they still didn't develop a rivalry. Why won't you two hate each other? Despite a good show, we dropped down into 3rd place. In week 3, Adam Pearce started running his mouth about how angry he is that we stole Finn Balor from his roster, and he swore that he will remember this and he will take revenge. But will he? The week continued to be a little shaky for us, with our show gaining the least amount of fans for the first time. We're still in 3rd place, but we're 23,000 fans behind top spot already. Our inability to put on title matches on an almost weekly basis is already starting to hurt us. I decided to put on a slightly bigger show in week 4 to make use of our large roster's reasonable stamina, and it went quite well, with a 2.5-star opener and a 4-star rated steel cage match main event between Dexter Lumis and Bobby Lashley. This is a rivalry we'll want to keep an eye on, as Bobby is the world champion after all. We progressed to week 5, our first premium live event, and an undeniably huge week for us. This would be the first time that we'd be putting one of our superstars' contracts at risk in the Ultimate Ironman Challenge. The week started badly, with Shotzi demanding a win from me. The only way to guarantee a win is to use a fixed match promo card, but I can't do that. Promo cards are off limits. I just have to hope that she could pick up a win by herself, because her low morale could become a serious issue for us. As it was only the first PLE, I hadn't had much time to build the biggest of rivalries, so I wouldn't be risking too many superstars this week. But I did put on a fairly exciting card. In our first match, Commander Aziz would take on Angel in a Hell in a Cell. It was rated 4 stars for our best opener of the season so far. In the next match, although it was only rated 2 stars, Dakota Kai and Bianca Belair finally started feuding with each other thanks to a triple threat match with Indy Hartwell also involved. That's another rivalry we'll need to pay attention to because Bianca is a champion as well. Edge and LA Knight teamed up to take on Ludwig and Finn Balor in another 2-star midcard, followed by jobbers Triton and Trent bringing in a 2.5-star rating for their Hell in a Cell match. We had jobber Kyle Slickman doing an advertising promo where he managed to lose 9 popularity, and he barely had any popularity anyway. His advert where he was trying to force people to buy headsets that they didn't really want didn't go down well at all. But then it came down to our main event, Brock Lesnar versus Logan Paul, and the men's title is on the line. As champion, if Brock loses, he will be immediately fired from our roster and we won't be able to replace him. The main event was rated 4 stars, and Brock managed to retain the belt. I felt so nervous as the match was playing out because losing one of our biggest superstars in the first PLE would have been pretty much the most disastrous start imaginable. We got our first amazing booking of the season and gained 135,000 fans, which was the biggest gain of the week, and it put us into 2nd place, 11,000 fans behind Tyler Breeze. Things will all change with trophies and fans to play for across another 20 weeks of the season, especially if we have to start firing superstars. And what on earth is going to happen when we put tag team belts on the line and 2 superstars are at risk of being fired in the same week? Nothing much exciting happened in week 6. Liv Morgan asked to join our brand. Doesn't she know the rules of this challenge? And Bianca Belair and Dakota Kai continued to build a rivalry. They're really starting to dislike each other now, and that is perfect as we move towards our second, much bigger and much riskier premium live event. In week 7, Shotzi continued to become absolutely furious with me for not fixing any matches in her favour. I can't help you, Shotzi. Please just get yourself a win. We put on a pretty good show, a 3-star opener, 3-star and 2.5-star mid-card, and a 3.5-star main event, and we gained 48,000 fans. But Raw and SmackDown both gained more than this. We're in second place, but things are incredibly close between us and Adam Pearce in third. Tyler and Raw are pulling away a little bit. Oh, and Shotzi lost again. And in week 8, she came to tell me she'd had enough of working for NXT 2.0 and I'd need to pay her $100,000 if she was going to stay. Money was going to be really tight for us as we needed to continue upgrading logistics and maxing out our shows, as well as renewing contracts. But I can't risk any superstars leaving for free. Because of all the potential losses we could suffer from firing people, I had to give in and pay this extortionate bonus. And it might not be the last time that I'm going to say that. After week 8's show, where Logan beat Brock Lesnar in the main event, though the title wasn't on the line this time, we slipped back into third place and we were now 32,000 fans behind the lead. We'd need to put on a big show at the next premium live event to prevent ourselves from falling too far behind. In week 9, Dakota Kai was angry with me, and now she's demanding $100,000, and yet again, we have to pay it. This makes our money situation so tight, and next week we're going to have to renew a lot of contracts. I don't even know if I can put a show together for the PLE. Brock tells us he's amazing at submission matches, and that sounds absolutely perfect. I agree to put him in one within 2 weeks, and I plan to make this happen against Logan for the title again next week. Brock then calls out Logan in week 9's show, and they develop a level 4 rivalry. Bobby Lashley also calls out Dexter Lumis, and they develop a level 4 rivalry of their own. That's 2 champions in 2 massive feuds heading into our second PLE. And we just managed to get back into second place before week 10. But then, my contract renewals. There were lots of them for the free agents and jobbers that I'd had to pick up. After paying the 2 bonuses of $100,000 in the 2 previous weeks, money was so incredibly tight that I could barely put on any special matches or upgrade my logistics at all for the PLE. This included needing to break my promise to Brock Lesnar that I'd put him in a submission match because I literally couldn't afford to do so. With no money and a very small amount of special matches that I could actually put on, I knew I'd have to take a serious risk this week and put a lot of belts on the line and a lot of superstars' careers on the line so that we didn't lose too much ground in the challenge. I made the crazy decision to put 4 title matches on the card, with 1 being a tag team. If everything went against us, we'd need to replace 5 superstars, and I'm already struggling. It would start with Bianca Belair against Dakota Kai, who absolutely hated each other at this point, finally, and Bianca would have the women's belt on the line in this level 4 rivalry Falls Count Anywhere match. We need Bianca to retain her belt because our female division already only has 6 superstars within it. We can't risk dropping down to 5 or less. And she nearly loses. She kicks out just in time and eventually goes on to win in our first 5-star legendary match. Kyle Slickman then loses another 3 popularity in another failed advertising promo, forcing headsets down people's throats. If money wasn't so tight, I wouldn't have my wrestlers doing this, but we're desperate for cash. Edge and LA Knight then lose to Finn Balor and Ludwig in a 4-star tag team match. But then it was time for the men's North American title to be on the line again. A rematch from our first PLE. Once again, we need Brock Lesnar to retain his belt against Logan Paul. It was a tables match, not the submission match I promised that Brock told us he was so good at, and we need to trust that Brock could get the job done and slam Logan through a table. And he did it. RNG is definitely on our side right now, but will it last? We run another advertising promo and Angelo Dawkins manages to lose 9 popularity shilling a crypto scam, and then it was time for the world title to be on the line for the first time this season. Bobby Lashley and Dexter Lumis have been quietly building up a heated feud and have a level 4 rivalry going into this match where, if Bobby loses, he will be fired. Firing our world champion would be really painful in a card that's been quite good for us so far, and the result, a 4-star match that Bobby Lashley won. This is extremely lucky for us. Their rivalry ends and Bobby Lashley retains not only his belt, but his spot on our NXT 2.0 roster. And then finally, it's not done yet, our main event. This might not seem main event worthy to you, but I think it absolutely is. A huge level 3 rivalry tag team match between Raquel Rodriguez and Indy Hartwell against Shotzi and Gigi Dolan. Our fans know that if Raquel and Indy lose, they will both be fired, and they're crazy excited to see what happens. Losing 2 of our 6 female superstars would cripple us here. We risked 5 superstars in total this week. So far, 3 have delivered. But it would be incredibly unlikely that all 5 retain their belts, and all 6 that we've risked so far this season would retain their belts. In a 4-star main event, the fans went absolutely wild as Raquel and Indy won. They retain and keep their belts. I still can't believe how much RNG we had on our side this week. We risked so much because of our poor finances, and it paid off. We got an amazing booking, we earned more fans than Raw and NXT, but it wasn't quite as much as SmackDown. I'm okay with that. We couldn't put on many special matches, and we did what we could to compete, but things are so tight overall in the standings now. We're 5,000 fans behind Tyler Breeze and Raw, but Adam Pearce and SmackDown are only 6,000 fans behind. This is so close, and we have some extremely tough weeks ahead of us. In week 11, Brock was absolutely fuming that we didn't deliver on our promise to give him a submission match, and we saw a major decrease to his morale. We can't risk any more $100,000 bonuses being needed, so I'd have to try my absolute best to meet everyone's silly promises and expectations for the whole season from here on out. Honestly, having one superstar lose their belt would probably have helped my finances a little bit, as I'd have clawed back a little bit of money from releasing their contract. But no, we're still here operating with 20 superstars on a shoestring budget and needing to renew multiple contracts every few weeks. We continued to try to win this challenge, but something was telling me that things would only get more difficult from here. Dexter Lumis, furious with his loss to rival Bobby Lashley and struggling to overcome the demons from his defeat, turned heel this week. And then in week 12, we had a disastrous result. It was the first time in the season that we'd failed to meet the drama curve. It wasn't because our opener or main event were particularly bad, but because a tag team match with 2 jobbers in performed surprisingly well. Commander Aziz, teaming up with Triton, took on Angel and Trent Shaw in an Extreme Rules match. It turned out that 2 of these wrestlers really love Extreme Rules matches, which I didn't already know about, and on top of this, the teams just so happened to put on a 4.5-star performance rating out of nowhere, and then there was some half-decent tag team chemistry on top. It would have been very hard for me to account for this, and the 4-star overall match rating threw off my drama curve for a poor finale result. Just as we got within touching distance of the lead, I made a mistake at a crucial time. Only, it didn't seem to matter. We took the lead by 500 fans, and we picked up our first season trophy, as did Tyler Breeze. Importantly, it would be impossible for us in this challenge to finish the year with 3 season trophies. This is because at least one of our season goals related to the use of power cards, which you know we can't use. If any of our rivals were to get to 3 season trophies, even if we had more fans, we wouldn't finish top of the leaderboard. My goal was to win on both trophies and especially fans. In week 13, something really risky took place. LA Knight demanded a shot at the world title, and because I knew money was so tight and I didn't want people to get upset and demand bonuses, I had to give in. He'd face Bobby Lashley for the world title this week, and if Bobby lost, he'd be fired. I decided to run an interference with Edge running in to attack Bobby Lashley in the hope that it would result in a disqualification and that the belt wouldn't change hands if Bobby lost. I didn't know if this would work, but it didn't matter. Bobby picked up the win and retained his world title again. We're still undefeated in title matches for the season. In week 14, it was great to see our old friend Sensational Starla headlining the main event over at NXT. That might explain why they're in last place though. In week 15, heading into our 3rd premium live event, Bianca demanded a $50,000 bonus. Not because she was mad with us for once, but because she was a star that simply deserved one. As always, I agreed to pay because I'm a little bitch. We had some good rivalries brewing and some good money to play with to put on a good show this week, so I decided I'd play things as safely as possible and risk just one title in our 3rd PLE. Would our first superstar get fired? Bobby Lashley would once again be defending the world title, this time against Edge. It was only a level 2 rivalry, so it could continue building, as long as Lashley wins. We would also have a huge main event at this PLE, John Cena versus Finn Balor in a level 4 rivalry tables match. We start with Triton and Commander Aziz taking on Trent Shaw and Angel in an Extreme Rules match. We found out the hard way that these teams are great at Extreme Rules matches already, and they deliver an epic 4.5-star opening match to end their level 4 feud. Dexter Lumis then took on Brock Lesnar in a 3.5-star match. That's a rivalry that will peak at the next PLE. Shotzi and Raquel ended a level 4 rivalry with a 4-star TLC match, and then it was time for Bobby Lashley to try to defend his World Championship belt against Edge. Is Bobby going to be able to pull off another huge victory here? Their level 2 rivalry would be great to continue building through the next few weeks, and Edge becoming world champion would be a little bit tricky for me to manage. But the match goes ahead. If Bobby loses, he becomes the first superstar fired in our challenge, and Bobby loses. Edge becomes the world champion. Bobby would need to be fired before next week's show. But this week's show wasn't over yet. John Cena and Finn Balor would go head to head in a massive clash to end their rivalry. But before that took place, Kyle Slickman took to the mic to call out John Cena. He said he was a little bitch and he could see him. He could see straight through his pathetic ways. The call out, unlike his advertising campaigns, was a success. The main event finished with a 4-star rating and a heated new feud between John Cena and Kyle Slickman, one that had the potential to develop until WrestleMania, assuming that John Cena doesn't get fired for losing his tag team belt first. It was an amazing booking. We gained the most fans this week with 166,000 to cement our place at the top, but things were about to get a lot harder as we had to fire one of our top superstars, Bobby Lashley. And the suffering didn't stop there. Tyler Breeze showed up and applied a Best Friends Forever card on us, which reduces 2 of our rivalries by 1 level. I hoped one of the rivalries would be the Edge v Lashley rivalry before I fire him, but I didn't get lucky. Their level 3 rivalry remained. Had all of our good luck started to run out? As if things weren't bad enough, Bobby Lashley then came to thank me for his rematch against Edge and said he feels like he's really on a roll at NXT 2.0 and that we're building something special here. Save your well wishes, Bobby. We'll pour one out for you, buddy, but you're fired. In week 16, we picked up our second and final possible season trophy for the challenge in a week where Logan Paul and Angelo Dawkins started to have some serious beef with each other in successful back-to-back call-outs. And in week 17, Kyle Slickman faced John Cena for the first time, and I had Xavier Woods interfere on Kyle's behalf for him to come out victorious. Week 17 concluded 3 straight weeks where all of our matches were between 2 and 3.5 stars as we tried to build new rivalries and manage stamina. And week 18 was slightly better as it started with a 4-star level 3 rivalry tables match between Brock Lesnar and Dexter Lumis. This exceptional performance and heated rivalry meant we had a surefire title defense lined up for Brock at the next premium live event. We were doing okay in the standings at this point. We were 17,000 fans ahead of second place and 59,000 fans ahead of third, which is definitely not a guaranteed win, far from it. Swings can and will still happen. I was feeling confident, but we were just 2 weeks away from a PLE where multiple titles would be on the line again, and multiple stars could get fired right before WrestleMania, which would derail everything. In week 19, things started to get really crazy. Bianca Belair and Indy Hartwell continued a massively heating up feud against Gigi Dolan and Dakota Kai with a 3.5-star rated tables match. LA Knight and Ludwig had a 3.5-star match of their own. Angelo Dawkins and John Cena teamed up against Finn Balor and Kyle Slickman, and they promised to put their tag team belt on the line in the same match next week. And Commander Aziz and Angel fought in an Extreme Rules match that gave us a clean sweep of 3.5-star rated results. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And in the call-outs, Dexter Lumis and Brock Lesnar called each other out, even though they already had a level 3 rivalry, just to guarantee that they'd have the finest Aberdeen Angus beef going into Brock's title defense next week. We'd now reached our final premium live event before WrestleMania. And call me crazy, but there's 4 titles on the line again. 5 superstars at risk. Do I want to do this? No. But do I need to do this? Also, probably no, actually, but did I do it? You bet I did. The first match of our card would be the only non-title fight. LA Knight against Ludwig in a level 4 rivalry Extreme Rules match. We need a good start to this PLE, and it delivered a 4-star result, which, considering our other matches were title matches, was not the best start, but I can't complain too much about a 4-star match. And this was where the risk began. It started with probably the biggest risk of them all. A men's tag team title match between the champions John Cena and Angelo Dawkins taking on Finn Balor and the man everyone loves to hate, Kyle Slickman. We need Cena and Dawkins to go over here. It's absolutely huge for the run. Dawkins has a level 3 rivalry with Logan that we want to continue into WrestleMania, and Cena and Kyle have their own rivalry going too. I'd lose both of those feuds if the title holders don't retain here. And Kyle nearly wins it versus John Cena, and then he goes crazy on both opponents. Angelo tries to rip the headset from Kyle's head, and this looks over. But Kyle reverses, Cena surely wins it, but Kyle kicks out again. And then finally, Angelo Dawkins wins it and they retain the belts. That was an absolutely epic match, but fortunately our tag team retained their belts and they get to stay on our roster until WrestleMania. The game only rated that at 3.5 stars, but I think we've been extremely hard done by there. What a match and what a result. Next up, we have the female championship belt on the line between Bianca Belair and Gigi Dolan. I did a GM interference on Bianca's side in the hope that it would get her over the line. We'd need a good performance and a win for Bianca, and we got both. 3.5 stars. Now on to two monumental matches for our challenge. It starts with Edge versus Logan Paul in a TLC match for the world title. There's no rivalry here, so this would really suck to have wasted a title match on, but also, Logan and Angelo Dawkins have a really heated rivalry going. It would be kinda cool if that rivalry was settled at WrestleMania for the world title, right? But if Edge lost the belt to Logan, then he'd be fired, and we kinda need Edge. His specialist class is really helpful for us in this run. But Edge loses. And much to the dismay of fans, Logan Paul becomes the NXT 2.0 World Champion. Edge has to be fired in a 3.5 star match, and he might not be the last one to be fired yet. In the main event, we have Brock Lesnar trying to cling on to his job at NXT 2.0. He tries to defend his US Championship belt in a level 4 rivalry match with Dexter Lumis. It's a submission match. Remember how good Brock said he was at these? And he's already successfully defended his belt twice before. Is he going to do it a third time, right before the road to WrestleMania? He better prove himself. And, oh no. Brock tapped. Dexter wins and becomes the North American champion in a 4.5 star classic match that means we have to fire not one, but two superstars after this show. What a disaster, and it might be the thing that stops us winning this challenge. We gained 138,000 fans this week, but Tyler Breeze and Raw gained 150,000, and they've overtaken us by 4,000 fans. We're only ahead on season trophies, and I won't count that as a win if he finishes on 1. We have to beat them on fans, and we're 4K fans behind now, and 2 superstars down too. Brock demands a rematch? You're fired, Brock! In week 21, we clawed the gap back to just 2,500 fans with 4 weeks to go. I can't believe how close this challenge has been. In week 22, some amazing feuds continued to heat up. Kyle Slickman and John Cena put on a great tables match, and Angelo Dawkins and Logan Paul's rivalry was at boiling point. They had a level 4 rivalry and serious anger towards each other with WrestleMania just around the corner. This week's show was an amazing booking, with 56,000 fans gained, and it put us back into first place. But anything can still happen in the final 3 weeks. Week 23 goes smoothly, although I've had to retire Finn to charity duty for the remainder of the year. He was a great addition to our roster after we stole him from SmackDown, but he's the one paying the biggest price for Edge and Brock being fired. We just can't put on a singles or tag team match for him anymore. Week 24, the penultimate week before WrestleMania, delivered some big match results. 2 4.5 star rated matches and 2 3.5 stars to help us massively outperform Raw again. And then it all came down to this week, WrestleMania. And it wouldn't be right if Kyle Slickman wasn't in the spotlight in the main event. But week 25 couldn't have started any worse. Adam Pearce really waited 23 weeks to get revenge on us for stealing Finn Balor from his roster. He vetoed Dexter Lumis, our US champion, from appearing on our WrestleMania card. His new rivalry with LA Knight would go unsettled. Oh, and Kyle Slickman demanded a $50,000 bonus for being an incredible superstar. Obviously I paid it once again, you know what I'm like. But to be fair to him, he's got 84 popularity now. He probably deserves it. I set up a card with storylines all over the show. We would start in unusual circumstances with the world title on the line between Angelo Dawkins and Logan. Who would end the season as the world champion? Well, due to it being a backstage brawl, it can only be simulated. But Angelo Dawkins came out on top. It was his first singles title match, and he ends the season as a 2-belt champion, as he also has the tag team belt alongside John Cena. It was a 5-star legendary match. Our female tag team level 4 rivalry TLC match delivered a 4.5 star classic. Shotzi versus Raquel Rodriguez gave us another 4.5 star classic in a level 3 submission match. Angel versus Commander Aziz in a level 4 Extreme Rules match with a Triton interference gave us a 3rd consecutive 4.5 star match. And then, the main event. And we already know who holds the US Championship. But who is going to win the People's Championship? The people of YouTube have their eyes on one match and one man, Kyle Slickman. John Cena takes him on in a level 4 rivalry. They absolutely hate each other in a Hell in a Cell in the WrestleMania main event. Who is going to come out on top? And is the match going to deliver enough to carry us to victory in the challenge? It was a bit of a battle, but in the end, Cena made light work of it. And the pair of legendary superstars delivered an unbelievable 5-star result that will be talked about for years to come. I think that's going to be enough to win the challenge. But is it? The results came in. We gained 288,000 fans at WrestleMania. Raw gained 207,000. NXT 189,000, and SmackDown just 160,000. It was a comfortable win for us in the ultimate Ironman MyGM challenge. I don't know which challenge was harder. Was it this, or the one that's on screen for you to watch next?